What's up, everyone? It's Drew. We're back with another NBA video. The Memphis Grizzlies have suddenly become a big talking point in the NBA the last couple weeks, the last couple days even, really ever since the Taylor Jenkins firing. They've had a very tumultuous season, a lot of ups, a lot of downs. Well, actually, mostly downs, even though they were peaking as the second seed in the Western Conference this year. And they've had a lot of interesting storylines developed. But I think the main thing that I want to talk about in this video is that the NBA seems very distressed about the state of the Grizzlies. And I think that's very, very unreasonable. So let's talk about this team and why I think we as NBA fans need to just chill out about the Memphis Grizzlies. If you guys like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers at some point, and every subscription, every like, it really counts a lot. We've got a Twitch and a Discord linked down below. Go follow those, and let's just get into this one. And I think the first thing we got to talk about, if you're talking about the Grizzlies, it's got to be Ja Morant. He's the main character of this team. He's, in my opinion, their most important player, and when he's on his game, their best player. He's the axis upon which this whole thing rotates. And I mean, we can just call it what it is. Ja has not had a good season. He's had a good season maybe compared to other starting point guards in the NBA. He's had a good season, maybe if you just look at it completely objectively, but if you look at this from the perspective of what Ja Morant has been doing the last few years versus this year, Ja Morant has really taken a dip this year in a few major ways. His three-point shooting the last couple years has stagnated pretty heavily, and that trend has continued this year. He just looks a little bit less explosive, a little less aggressive, just not as dominant or as forceful as he has been in years past. Talked about not dunking this year. Super weird. I don't really believe that that's going to be a thing that he just stops doing. I think the main reason that he's sort of been not as good this year, though, is just he's had a bunch of little injuries. I actually looked this up right before this video. You look at the injury report for Ja Morant this season, it's hamstring, shoulder, knee, shoulder, illness, foot, AC joint, misses a few weeks with a back injury. The shoulder and the back injuries have really hampered his ability this season. Back injuries really zap your athleticism, so if that's going to be something that continues, that might be something to really note and monitor with him. But assuming that's just a minor thing, I really don't have a lot of concern with Ja Morant. I think it's just sort of a down year for him. A weird year for the Grizzlies trying to implement this new offense where he's really not as involved as much. Part of his lack of involvement in the offense has just been the fact that he's never healthy. So they've needed Scottie Pippen to sort of bolster the playmaking and the ball handling duties on this team. Other than Ja, this team really doesn't have a ton of shot creation. Of course, Desmond Bane can do it a little bit, but Scottie Pippen is really the main, I guess, orchestrator of the offense when Ja is away. So I guess when Ja comes back, and he's only played 47 games this year, so he's not only is he not eligible for awards, he's barely played half the season. So I guess implementing him with a secondary ball handler like Scottie Pippen, it's really difficult, especially when Scottie's had such a good season. A crazy discount bargain bin player, by the way. He literally came out of nowhere, and this team basically stole him. So I think just all those factors have sort of led to this inevitable downfall that Ja was going to have this season. Fortunately, because the Grizzlies murdered Taylor Jenkins this week, and I'm pretty sure fired half his coaching staff or something, I think the offense is going to go back to normal. Ja had a crazy good game in Miami last night where he went off in the second half, hit a game winner, had this crazy tip in late in the game. He just looked really electric, and the Grizzlies really deferred to him down the stretch. Even when he got double teamed, and he got double teamed a lot last night, he still was very, very effective at passing out of that and just still being very aggressive, through and through. So I think the Grizzlies might be able to turn a corner here with Ja Morant in the last 8 games of the season. Maybe they can make some noise in the playoffs. I'm not super certain about it now that they've got this new coach. They've got this new coach, Tomas Isalio. He is, I guess, going to sort of, bring the Grizzlies back to where they were before. I think Taylor Jenkins had really lost John Morant and lost a lot of the locker room this season, so I think that was sort of also contributing to their downfall. And honestly, I think John Morant is due for a much better season next year. This is still one of the most explosive, talented guards in the NBA. I have no doubt that he's going to be awesome next year. I think it's just a matter of like, how can they really build this team effectively around him, and can they get him some ball handling help? Because yes, I think the Scottie Pippen lineups actually work. I'd like to see a little bit more of just a better shot creator than Scottie Pippen next to Ja. Again, Desmond Bane definitely can do it, but Desmond Bane is also not super versatile. He's really more, I'd rather Desmond Bane be like my third option than like a second option, or like a 2A, 2B with Jaren Jackson, because that's pretty much how it looks right now to me. Because Jaren also really isn't a great shot creator either. He's just big and somewhat versatile, and just, he's kind of a goober in a lot of ways, which I guess makes him very difficult to defend. If we want to talk about the rest of this team, though, Desmond Bane had a very poor start to this season, but he has picked it up a lot in the second half of the year, and he's been pretty good. He is going to be eligible for awards. He's played a majority of the year, so his health hasn't really been an issue, which is sort of bucking a trend from the last few years. Jaren Jackson's been awesome this year. Jaren Jackson's been a total badass. He's put up great numbers from start to finish. He's a strong DPOY candidate, which is a problem actually for this team, and we'll get to that in a minute. But he's been a much more effective three-point shooter than pretty much any other time in his career since his second season in the NBA. He's putting the ball on the deck more and creating shots off the dribble like he was last year, where he basically had to carry their offense, except this year the Grizzlies are still good in spite of that, and he's a DPOY candidate again, even though he's still like fouling like crazy. Like, this is still a problem. Jaren Jackson has never really cut down the fouling, which is probably going to be his undoing in him not winning DPOY, but like, still, he's had a very good season on the whole. He's just looking more aggressive, more refined, and I think they understand how to utilize him a lot better at this point in his career. So you look at the top three of this team, and they've got a really strong big three still. Lacks a little bit of shot creation when Ja Morant's not on his game, and Ja is also sort of a difficult player to utilize off ball, but I still think like the ceiling of that big three, it's one of the best and also the youngest in the NBA. I'm pretty sure all of these guys are between 24 and 26. So, like, what's really the problem with this team? They're one of the 5 or 6 youngest teams in the NBA. They are super cheap, relatively speaking. They have a pretty low payroll, even though they're due to pay Jaren Jackson in the next year, and he could be eligible for the biggest contract in NBA history if he wins DPOY this season, which is a problem. Obviously, it'd be great if Jaren won, but, you know, that's a lot of money to pay for a second or third option who's a fringe all-star. And this team is also excellent at drafting. People are making it seem like the fact that they fired Taylor Jenkins, it's like Armageddon. Like, this team is collapsing. John Morant's had such a shitty year that, like, this team just, like, the foundation is completely cooked. But I don't really think that's the case at all. I think they're in a very confusing position with how to utilize their big three. I think they're a team that's definitely due for a trade. They've got a ton of expendable young players now. They literally just like found Jalen Wells in the draft. So I think that has sort of moved all their young players from last season like down a notch. And I think because of that, a lot of players like a G.G. Jackson, a Vince Williams, who's not even really that young, maybe even a Zach Edey, just all these young players they have, plus all the draft picks they have, become movable. I think the player they need to be looking for is someone who can create shots off the dribble, who's sort of a matchup nightmare. I have sort of gone back and forth about whether or not this team is a legit Kevin Durant destination. Obviously, KD is going to be moving this offseason. The Grizzlies definitely have the ammunition to make that trade happen. And I honestly think they have a good shot of getting it done without having to move Jaren Jackson or Desmond Bane. I'm pretty sure both of those guys having to be in the deal is a complete non-starter, as is the case with like any trade that this team would have to make, unless they're trading for like, I don't know, Luka Doncic. And even if they don't make a trade this offseason, I have no doubt in my mind that the Grizzlies front office and their scouting team is going to continue to find good young players to put around Ja, and it'll be inevitable that they'll have stockpiled enough players to where like they can make a pretty wide array of trades. This team is very similar to OKC in that regard, where they just sort of like find dudes who are like really good NBA players pretty much out of nowhere, in the same way that the Thunder just sort of found Isaiah Joe. They sort of just found Aaron Wiggins, and they made them into really good NBA players. Lou Dort as well. Just like every player on this OKC team was like scraps from some other, remnants of another team. The Grizzlies have kind of done the same thing building this team, and so I really don't think I would be worried about their construction. I think the Taylor Jenkins firing was honestly not as surprising as people make it out to be. I think initially it was very, very surprising just because this is a very bizarre time in the season to fire anybody. But honestly, now that I've sort of seen it through, it does make a little bit more sense. Obviously, Taylor Jenkins is still a very good coach, but I think just the combination of not being able to have Ja Morant on the same page and just sort of the up and downs they've had this season, this sort of looked like it was inevitable just probably in the off season. And the structure of this team, their ceiling for the next few years is still higher than just about every other team in the Western Conference. They're really ahead of schedule when you compare them to some of the other teams in their same age bracket. And in terms of teams that are at the top of the Western Conference, they don't have either the payroll concerns immediately that like a Minnesota does, and they don't really have like the injury or depth issues that you look at like a team like Denver might have. They have a number one option who's like a legitimate franchise player in my opinion, which is something that Houston is sort of contending with right now. They're not really sure. Golden State and LA, these teams are pretty old. Now the Lakers, they literally have Luka Doncic, so they're probably going to be fine. But like I look at the Memphis Grizzlies and I think they fit right into this Western Conference playoff picture. They've got a good chance to still contend for home court advantage in the playoffs this year. I'm really not worried about them at all. So like, can we just chill about the Memphis Grizzlies? Oh, this is one thing I forgot to mention about Ja Morant. Stop doing gun things. He got a warning about it from the Lakers game like 2 nights ago. And then last night he got $75,000 from the Heat game as 2 different like isolated incidents. Like, how do you fuck that up twice in 1 week? How does he do gun things twice in 1 week? He's got to stop threatening people with firearms. But other than that, like, I'm really not that worried about this team, and I think the Memphis Grizzlies still have one of the brightest futures in the NBA. They're a legitimate Kevin Durant destination, in my opinion. I think he could elevate Ja Morant in a lot of ways, forcing teams to not double team Ja as much. I think they have the assets to do it. And even if they don't get Kevin Durant this offseason, I think they'll be able to re-sign everyone they need to. Santi Aldama, Jaren Jackson will get his extension. And I think this team is going to be just fine. So that's the Memphis Grizzlies. If you guys like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers at some point. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Cue that music.